Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for coming tonight. You being here means literally everything to James and I. A few months ago, we were lucky enough to be invited by Mr. Edwards to come here and talk to your boys. And James and I have spent a long time, over a year and a half now, talking in so many different formats, but the thing that gives us the biggest kick is to come to schools like this and talk to children. The charity Facing the World is for children, and it makes it extra special for us. When we were here at the end of January, beginning of February, we were struck by how attentive and how interested and how interesting the boys were. They asked fantastically pertinent questions, and they were impeccably behaved. They were also extremely well-mannered, and that means a lot to me. We find it in short supply these days, and Eton House, the manor, has it in spades. So I hope you're very proud of them. You should be. I want to just tell you briefly about how us Facing the Atlantic and this Facing the World join. A few years ago, I was fortunate enough to be asked to read at a friend of mine's wedding out in Provence. This I did. She was an actress friend of mine, and it was there that I got to know this gentleman here, Martin Kelly, who she married. And over the course of the days, months, years that followed, I began to realize what an exceptional man he was. He could seemingly turn his hand to anything. He was a musician, he was a genius surgeon, as we know, he was an artist, he was a wonderful family man, but his passion was children and helping them get better in whatever form that was. He's a craniofacial surgeon. So it was no surprise to me when one day he said, "Bertie, I'm starting a charity," and as he told me more about it, I could see the glint in his eye and the fire in his belly, and I knew from that moment on this was going to be something special. Well, he told me about it and how it all started. He was operating out in Kabul for another charity, and literally a conveyor belt of children were being brought to him with hair lips and fairly routine operations that he could do that were difficult out there, but he could do very easily. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see a man holding what looked like a bundle of clothes, bundle of rags, but he carried on, and at the end of the day, sure enough, there was this man with this bundle. The man unwrapped the bundle, and there was this little girl who was just 2, with extensive facial deformity. You'll see her in the brochures on the table. She's the one in her father's arms. Martin took one look at her and knew that with what he had out there in Kabul, in a war situation, theatre of war, he wouldn't be able to do anything for her. Martin was compassionate, he wasn't sentimental, he couldn't afford to be. So he told the father via an interpreter that he couldn't do anything for her. The interpreter then begged and begged Martin. He said, "No, I can't, I have to be pragmatic." It was then that the interpreter said to Martin, "If you don't operate on this girl, this little girl, she will be taken out this very night and stoned to death." A pit had already been dug for her, and the elders in the village were discussing it at that point. Martin knew that he couldn't allow this, and so cut through a load of red tape, flew this little girl back to England with his team, and that's his co-founder there, Norman Waterhouse. They operated on this little girl. She's now back in Kabul, goes to school, and lives a relatively, as you can out there, normal life. Well, I heard this story and was blown away by it, and I wanted to do something to help, but I didn't know what, and ditherer that I am, it took me a while to think of what to do. Well, during that time, the unthinkable happened, and Martin, tragically, very suddenly died. In fact, he died 3 years ago this very day. And the team of surgeons from Facing the World are at his graveside now as I speak. Well, I knew that I would have to do something. I wanted to do something extreme and fairly extraordinary for this extraordinary man and his extraordinary charity. And so rowing the Atlantic seemed to fit that bill. I asked James Cash, who is a wonderful personal trainer, in November of that year, in 2008, And happily for me, he said yes. So that's how we and the charity are linked. The charity itself offers pioneering surgery, there's no other way of describing it, to children who need it. Thankfully, we here in this country, your children in the West, we don't need this. But all children, we feel, are our responsibility, and certainly they have a lot of work in Vietnam, where the legacy of the Vietnam War from Agent Orange are some of these children who have terrible, terrible deformity and face a life of poverty, neglect, in some cases even death, as I've just explained. I'm delighted to be involved with this. Martin was a great friend of mine, and it's thanks to really wonderful people like you who come to events like this. Most of you I've never even met before. It means so much to me and to James. And one of the surgeons today who's operating on a pair of conjoined twins, we have to call them now, Siamese twins, he wanted to express his own personal thanks on behalf of Facing the World to you all. You know, often I'm asked about Facing the World, and I can rabbit on as you know, till the cows come home. In these brochures, that will tell you more about what James and I are going to do. We're going to row the Atlantic from the Canaries, La Gomera, all the way across to Barbados, which is 3,000 miles, on December the 4th. We are going at that time of year because it's not hurricane season. We have the trade winds, and really people say that if we didn't row straight, we would get there in the end. I don't know about that. We take all our food and provisions with us. It's an unaccompanied crossing, unsupported. We have a water desalinator, which transfers all our seawater into drinking water. We're going to need a lot of it because it's very, very hot then, 40 degrees. I'm not going to say too much about that. It's fairly comprehensive in that, so have a look, because I know that we've got a lot to cover tonight. But I will just leave you with this, that when people ask me why I'm doing what I'm doing, if they happen to be in my house, I try and show them this.